Yo, what is up, guys? It's Cohen back here again today with another video, another recap of the NBA games from tonight. I know these are the only videos I've done the past couple of days. I'm really swamped with schoolwork. If you did not know, I'm in my third year of college, and so I'm really struggling right now with midterm exams and stuff like that. So be on the lookout for more content. I might drop a video again tomorrow. We'll see. But for right now, these late night recaps are kind of what I'm going with. And I kind of want to talk about the playing games for a little bit. It's not necessarily a lot about the games themselves that happened tonight, but I kind of want to look at what is going on with some of the teams that played tonight and how the playing game is affecting the NBA itself. I do want to start this video by saying a shout out and a prayer to Jamal Murray. Looked like he tore his ACL against the Golden State Warriors. I know that's probably not what you're hoping to hear, but from the video I've looked at it looks bad. And I don't know why ESPN almost like zoomed in on him lying in agony on the ground and turned up the court volume so we could hear him screaming. Like, that threw me off a lot. I feel like that's something they should turn down the volume and just let the announcers talk. And yeah, I don't know, but I hope he's okay. I really do. I'm hoping it's like a Joel Embiid situation like earlier in the season where Embiid hyperextended his knee and it turned out to be just that and not an ACL tear, which most people were kind of thinking it was. The unfortunate part is this looked more like an ACL tear. Embiid's knee kind of went like straight and like bent in a little bit. This looked like Jamal Murray couldn't even really push off of it. And from the way he hobbled off, I don't think it looks good. Praying it's not as bad as it looks. But if it is, this really is terrible. The Nuggets were really hitting their stride despite losing their last two games. The Nuggets have been on fire. They've been playing phenomenal, and he is a huge part to their team. And without him, their ceiling drops dramatically. So I hope he's okay. I hope he comes back soon. And yeah, it sucks too because the Nuggets were out of it for most of the game, and then at the end of the game, they start to make this comeback. So Jamal Murray stays in as opposed to leaving early and ultimately gets hurt. So hope Jamal Murray's okay. Now, moving out of that and moving into what I want to talk about, the playing games. And this is something that was brought into the NBA last season. They tried it out, but they've expanded the format this season. If you still don't know how the format works, it is the 7 and 8 seeds play and the 9 and 10 seeds play. The winner of the 7-8 seed game goes on to the playoffs automatically as the 7 seed. The loser of that game plays the winner of the 9-10 seed matchup, and those two teams, whoever wins gets the 8 seed and whoever loses out of the playoffs. So it's very possible for the 7 seed to just miss the playoffs if they miss 2 games in a row. And it makes things really interesting because we have a lot more situations where teams that probably at this point would have normally tried to tank out the end of the season are trying to win games. Some notable examples we can look at are the Sacramento Kings. I feel like by this point in the season, if there wasn't a playing game, the Kings probably would have given up. Maybe not given up, but they would have probably dealt more at the trade deadline, and that's something I thought they should have done, especially with the way they've been playing recently. They just need to get a guy next to De'Aaron Fox, and I thought that trying to maximize those lottery odds was the best use of the second half of this season, although I do understand if De'Aaron Fox is kind of done with losing and he just wants to win basketball games. I do understand that, but I feel like the Kings should have blown it up a little bit more. The Pelicans, who the Kings lost to tonight, are a team that I think would have tried to play it out anyways, because when you have Zion, you have Ingram, they've seen themselves jump in the lottery recently to get Zion. They were not supposed to get that first overall pick. They were nowhere near that. I think they were like 7th or 8th, maybe even 9th. I want to say it was 8 though, and they ended up getting Zion Williamson. So they firsthand have seen that the lottery gods can be kind, even if you do just barely miss out in the playoffs. So they're going to continue trying to win, and they're a team I could see upsetting some teams in the play-in tournament, which would be pretty interesting to see. Yeah, we could take a look at maybe like the Chicago Bulls, who I've never really been out of the playoffs or anything, but the move for Vucevic was clearly a move that said we're going for this play-in game or we're just going to try and make it into the playoffs. And in previous seasons, if they didn't have a play-in game, who knows, maybe Vucevic does not get dealt to the Bulls, maybe to another team. Really the only teams right now, we could also talk about the Washington Wizards too. I have my friend Wayne. You've heard me probably talk about him a couple times on this channel as a Wizards fan, and he's been talking about how much the Wizards should be tanking because he really wants another pick next to Bradley Beal, or in the case of a possible rebuild at some point soon in the future, getting a guy to build around when Bradley Beal is inevitably gone, if that rebuild does end up coming. And instead, they beat the Jazz tonight. They're the only team this season to beat the Jazz at home. So good for the Washington Wizards winning it. But if you're looking for a lottery pick, this was not at all what you were hoping to see. And like I was going to say a second ago, I think really the only teams that we can say are like tanking are like the Thunder. Like, we're taking active tank measures. The Orlando Magic are tanking. Every other team is kind of just playing. Like, even really bad teams like the Timberwolves are trying to win basketball games. It looks like they're not sitting anyone. They're playing their guys, and they've won more since Chris Finch has come in and been a head coach for them. He's done a pretty good job. We could talk about the Detroit Pistons, who are still playing guys. It's not like they're setting people on purpose to lose games like the Thunder are. The Magic are just they dealt everyone at the deadline, so they knew they were tanking. But it's weird to see that not many teams are really tanking, which I think goes a long way for the Thunder as a Thunder fan, because I have to talk about them in every video. It goes a long way for us trying to get that pick that we really want, that superstar possible talent next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to be our two guys for the future, our two core guys, maybe next like a Bazley, Poku, stuff like that down the line, and also for other teams like the Orlando Magic who are trying to tank. And it's interesting to see. It's kind of cool to see that so many teams are going for it. There's been a lot of takes like pro and anti play-in game. I believe it was Luka Doncic who might have, I think it was tonight, he said that he said the play-in game is dumb because you can win all season and get the 7 seed and you lose 2 games and you're out of the playoffs, which part of me gets that, but the other part of me is like, that's also the playoffs work. You could win 60 games, go into as the 1 seed and lose 4 games and you're out of the playoffs. You could get swept by an 8 seed. Like, the playoffs is just 2 more games. If you are the better team, just win those 2 games. I understand if there are injuries and stuff, that could kind of complicate things. But even with injuries, you're probably not going to do well in the playoffs anyways. And ultimately, it might be better for your team to try and get a draft pick if you're not going to succeed in the playoffs. So it's just an interesting balance. Let me know what you guys think of the play-in game. I want to make a video talking more about the play-in game when it does come around. I think it's going to be really interesting. I made a mid-seasons prediction video, and I said that I thought 1 10 seed was going to make the playoffs out of the play-in tournament, which would be super interesting to see. We'll see if I'm right about that. I just think there's so much talent in the NBA right now that an upset like that is very much possible, especially if like a Pelicans get that 10 seed. If some team gets the 7 seed and ends up losing to a 10 seed in the play-in tournament, Adam Silver's going to have threats in his mailbox. Fans are not going to be happy. Who knows? Maybe for right now, I'm just saying it's cool because I'm not a fan of one of those teams competing for one of those spots. But I do think it's a cool way to try and prevent against tanking. That combined with the new lottery odds, I think they're doing a good job of preventing tanking better than they ever had this season. It's just unfortunate for them that these measures come at the same time that Sam Presti has entered ultra tank mode. So we'll see if there is any more measures to come. But I think for right now, they've done a pretty good job of curbing tanking. I'm sorry if you heard that. I just smacked the hell out of my water bottle on my left. So outside of that, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the games specifically. I do want to talk more about the Warriors-Nuggets game. I know I talked about the Jamal Murray injury to start this video, but I want to give a shout out to Steph Curry, who passed Wilt Chamberlain on the all-time scoring list for the Warriors, becoming the highest scorer in Warriors franchise history, and I just think that's remarkable. It's so cool to see a guy like Stephen Curry, a transcendent player. Yes, I'm going to say transcendent player, because recently in the media, there have been some people saying that he's not transcendent, and some people in my mentions. If you don't think Steph Curry is a player who has changed the game of basketball, we're watching different basketballs. So he is a transcendent player, changed the way that the game operates, changed the way the three-point shot is looked at. Everyone has wanted to find the next Steph Curry. That's what every team is trying to do right now. Every team is trying to teach their guys to shoot like Steph Curry. Steph Curry was the best player on the Warriors that helped to revolutionize the NBA. And I think it's really cool that a guy who isn't the biggest, he isn't the strongest, he's not the most athletic type guy, he's just dominating the league, and he has been for a long time now, winning multiple MVPs, winning a bunch of rings, and now balling out and ultimately becoming the Warriors franchise leader in points. I just think that's really cool to see. I talked the other day about how Nikola Jokic, it's cool to see him potentially winning MVP. He's probably the favorite, although that might shift a little bit if the Nuggets lose more games due to the Jamal Murray injury. But for right now, I think it's cool. Shout out to the Warriors. Shout out to Stephen Curry. I think it's cool that new guys are winning things like Nikola Jokic could win MVP. I think it's cool that Steph Curry continues to ball. It's cool to see some continuity and some new guys. It's cool. The NBA is cool right now. It's really fun to follow the NBA. So outside of that, I don't know really what else I want to talk about. I will talk about Joel Embiid for a little bit because I made that video yesterday about, or not yesterday, the day before yesterday, about Nikola Jokic probably going to win MVP. And there were Sixers fans who were mad at me. They're like, I still have Joel Embiid. And that's certainly a possibility. If the Nuggets do fall off a little bit in this last home stretch of the season, I could still see Joel Embiid taking home the MVP award. I just really wouldn't count on it. Another thing that this is going to do, a potential Jamal Murray injury could lead to Nikola Jokic putting up more stats. It's going to be interesting to see how the season kind of finishes out. But no matter what, I don't think you can count out Joel Embiid, but I do think Jokic will end up taking the award home. Whether or not he should, it depends on your view of the games that Joel Embiid missed. I think he just might have missed too much time, and I don't know if that is right to rob him. Not rob him. It would not be robbing him to give the award to Nikola Jokic, but I don't know if it's right to take his MVP award away because of the games he missed, despite the fact that the Sixers are the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference right now. I'm pretty sure that's where they're at because them and the Nets keep flip-flopping. I think tonight's win did give them that 1 seed. So is it right to take it from Joel Embiid to give it to Jokic? It's really just once again the debate of do you take stats or do you take wins, which is something that has gone back and forth over the years. We had it really peaked with the whole Russell Westbrook James Harden MVP race in 16-17 that Russell Westbrook did end up winning, taking stats over winning. That was also though an unprecedented situation with Russ having that narrative of Kevin Durant leaving, averaging that triple double, and I will go on for the rest of my life saying that Russ should have won that MVP, and I'm really glad he did, obviously. So I don't know. I think the MVP race is definitely going to heat up. LeBron James could come back soon, although I do think he's out of it now. I think he has missed definitely too much time. I'm pretty sure he's missed more time than Joel Embiid. I'm pretty sure he has. I just think it's going to be too long by the time he comes back for him to win it, so he's probably out of it. I think at this point it's probably going to come down to Embiid and Jokic. I don't see anyone else winning it over the two of them, which is cool to see that the center debate, that one that has been going on for years. If you've been on NBA Twitter, if you've watched NBA content, the debate for years has been, is it Jokic, is it Embiid, who is the best center in the NBA? And this MVP award is going to go a long way to one side's case because they're like, oh, he won MVP, he's obviously the better player. So it's going to be fun to see. I think the timeline is going to get really toxic when that rolls around. I'm excited for it because I am neutral in this debate. I've been back and forth for a while. Up until last season, I was always Team Joel Embiid. Now I would probably say I lean Jokic. It's really cool to see, though, that these two big men are dominating the game, and I'm excited to see where their careers continue to go. I'm excited to see the way that the MVP race finishes out, and I think we're in for a good one. I think we're in for a good end of the season as well. Like I mentioned, the PlayIn Tournament, this is just going to be a fun stretch, and I'm excited to talk about it with you guys. Outside of that, I don't want to talk about the Kings anymore. I don't want to talk about the Kings and how they should fire Luke Walton. They should have traded off some guys at the trade deadline and fired Luke Walton in the offseason and did like a full reset with maybe a potential another great prospect next to Fox and Halliburton because Fox needs help. Bagley's been hurt all the time. Tyrese Halliburton's cool and all, but he's not quite there yet. He's still developing. I do think he's going to be a star player, but he's still developing. Fox put up like 40 tonight and they lost. It was like Bradley Beal-esque. The Pelicans are also just solid. I don't want to say they're good. They have really good players, but as a team, they're not very good. The Kings, if they're a team that wants to make the playoffs, this is a game they have to win, and they lost it. I don't see any way that the Kings end up making the playoffs. I think it's way out of the realm of possibility for them right now. De'Aaron Fox is doing all he can. It's just not enough, and the Kings are going to continue to be stuck in mediocrity if they continue to not put talent around De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox is probably getting sick of losing. Everyone on the Kings is probably sick of losing because the Kings haven't made playoffs in a very, very long time. And if this drought continues, Fox is going to get upset real quick, and you can't risk pissing off your franchise cornerstone. So I don't know what the Kings are going to do. They just keep losing, even though they're trying to win. When they're trying to lose, they don't lose enough. It just feels like they're permanently stuck in purgatory, and I think Luke Walton is a big part of that. You've got to get rid of him. This Kings team has more potential than it's seeing right now, and Luke Walton is not a good coach. He has to go. I'm going to keep preaching that. You're going to keep hearing me talk about it in these videos because it still blows my mind how he is still their coach. Next, I will talk about the Bulls and Grizzlies game. Is Jonas Valanciunas the Grizzlies' best player? He might be. I think that's a debate to be had because John Morant's cool. He's definitely the flashy player, but Jonas Valanciunas has been a monster recently. Probably like a top 6-7 center, depending on where you rank guys. Like I think obviously it's like Embiid and Jokic, the 1A, 1B. Then you have Cat, Gobert, Bam. I think those 5 guys, and then the 2 centers who faced off tonight, Vucevic and Valanciunas, are probably also up there. You could talk about like a Clint Capella, maybe a Yusuf Nurkic when he's healthy, but those are probably the top guys. And in tonight's battle, Jonas Valanciunas beat Vucevic, and it's cool to see the way that Vucevic and Valanciunas kind of went at each other. I don't like the way that the Bulls have been using Vucevic recently. The 3-game win streak they had doing a lot more post-ups, and it feels like now he's been reduced to kind of a spot-up shooter as of recently. I don't know. Maybe Billy Donovan isn't as good as he seemed in OKC. Maybe it was more of the Chris Paul effect than I realized. I knew Chris Paul had a major effect, and I knew Chris Paul was probably the primary reason why we were winning so many games, but I thought Billy Donovan did a solid job last season. I'm doing the whole 3-guard lineup thing, playing Lou Dort a lot of the time. I think those were great decisions, but I don't know. He just hasn't looked great on the Bulls so far, and they're going away from what was winning them games, and it showed tonight that they just weren't ready for it. I still don't know if the Bulls are going to make the playoffs. Since they made that Vucevic trade, I was saying that they were going to make the playoffs, but I don't know. Talent doesn't always equate to wins. We've seen that a lot of time. We see that with, like, a team I just talked about, the Pelicans, as of recently. Even when you add more talent, it doesn't always equate to wins. The talent has to work together. The coach has to utilize that talent, and it just feels like the Bulls aren't utilizing their talent right now. Also, disappointing seasons from Kobe White and Lauri Markkanen. Kobe White was a guy I really thought was going to have a breakout season. He just hasn't. Maybe I'll make a video about the Bulls soon. Maybe I have to do that. Although I do feel like I talk about them a good bit. And then on the Memphis Grizzlies side of the ball, like I said, Jonas Valanciunas might be the Grizzlies' best player. He's just super impactful, gets a ton of rebounds. He scores the ball from all over the court. Court? I think I said court. All over the court. And it's just cool to see those two go at it, or those two, Ja Morant and Jonas Valanciunas, operate as a duo. I can't wait till Jaren Jackson Jr. gets back, because this Grizzlies team, I believe, has had the 7th best offense in the NBA so far this season. And that's without Jaren Jackson Jr., who's a really good defensive player. He stretches the floor out for Ja Morant. I think when he comes back, that's going to be huge for Ja Morant's play, as well as Jonas Valanciunas, another guy that can stretch the floor and let Ja attack and let Jonas operate down low. Right now, they do have some options out there, but having Jaren Jackson Jr. out there as a threat is definitely an improvement, adding on to more threats than they already have. The Grizzlies are exciting. I'm excited to see how the Grizzlies finish out this season. I think they're a team that will end up making the playoffs. I think the Grizzlies are going to take maybe that 8 spot. I don't know, though. It's going to be fun. I don't know if anyone's going to beat that Warriors team. Steph Curry in a play-in game, that's probably the most terrifying thing. That's probably what Luka's afraid of when talking about that. The play-in game and how he doesn't like it is Steph Curry coming out in the play-in game and potentially beating them. So we'll see how that goes. I think that's pretty much all I want to talk about in this video. Shout out the Wizards being the Jazz, helping the Thunder get to the 6th best lottery odds. They're another team, like I said, maybe should be tanking, aren't tanking. It's hard to tank with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal. You can't really convince them to tank, and you can't convince the fans that when you have these 2-star players, you're going to tank. Shout out to the Rockets for keeping it close against the Suns. Kevin Porter Jr. had a great game, so he deserves a shout out. And Jay Crowder is just a really good role player for the Suns, beating the Rockets by 6 points. Jay Crowder had 8 threes in the first half. He's just a guy that's going to knock down shots for you. He's a super integral player to that Suns team, and he's part of a reason why they're so good right now. So, bunch of shout-outs across the league. Once again, prayers up to Jamal Murray. Really hope he's okay, man. I hate injuries. It's like both felt like there have been more injuries this season, and like there actually have not been that many. I think it's just because maybe the games are so like close together that we see these injuries happen kind of in quick succession, as opposed to where the season typically would have started in October and ends in like June, where this season it started in December and it's also going to end in like that June-ish area. So maybe it's just because it's so condensed why it feels like those injuries are getting worse. But prayers up to Jamal Murray. Hope he gets better soon. And yeah, so with that, I will see you guys later. Let me know what you thought of the games. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Everyone say